The story begins somewhere in the Arctic, where a group of scientists and researchers discover an airplane trapped in the ice. Upon investigating, they find a valuable artifact frozen for nearly 100 years. They immediately alert the general about their findings. We are then taken back to 1942 in Norway, where a man named Johann Schmidt, a German officer and commander, interrogates a captive in search of Odin's treasure, known as the Tesseract. The captive tries to fool Schmidt with a fake Tesseract, but Schmidt sees through the deception and locates the real artifact hidden behind a wooden door. After securing the Tesseract, we are transported to a Brooklyn military registration camp during World War II. Here we meet a young man named Steve Rogers, who is eager to enlist in the army and fight for his country. However, Steve is frail, half the size of the other recruits, and suffers from various illnesses. Recently orphaned, Steve leads a lonely and difficult life. Despite his determination, the army repeatedly rejects him, seeing him as a liability. Steve is deeply patriotic, respects those who serve, and despises bullies, never hesitating to stand up to them, even though it often results in him being beaten up. His best friend, Bucky Barnes, defends him when he can, but Bucky is leaving for war soon, leaving Steve to fend for himself. To celebrate their last night together, Bucky and Steve attend a double date at a science expo. While Bucky charms the ladies, Steve's attention is drawn to a sign encouraging enlistment in the army. Ignoring Bucky's protests, Steve tries to enlist for the 5th time. Bucky, realizing Steve's persistence, wishes him luck and leaves for his date. Their conversation is overheard by a scientist named Dr. Abraham Erskine, who becomes intrigued by Steve's determination and spirit. During Steve's medical examination, Dr. Erskine steps in and asks Steve why he wants to fight in the war. Steve replies that he doesn't want to kill anyone. He just hates bullies, regardless of where they come from. Impressed by Steve's character, Dr. Erskine approves him for a secret project. Meanwhile, Johann Schmidt and his scientist, Dr. Arnim Zola, are experimenting with the Tesseract's energy to develop powerful weapons that could help them win the war. The experiment is successful, and Schmidt plans to use this advanced technology to overpower the Allies. Back at the military camp, Steve undergoes basic training alongside other recruits, including Private Gilmore Hodge. Here we meet Agent Peggy Carter and Colonel Chester Phillips. Dr. Erskine explains his plan to use a special serum to create a super soldier, a transformation that can only be done once. He believes Steve is the ideal candidate, though Colonel Phillips disagrees, thinking someone stronger, like Hodge, would be a better fit. To prove Steve's worth, Colonel Phillips throws a dummy grenade into the training area, expecting Hodge to act heroically. Instead, Steve dives on the grenade, ready to sacrifice himself for others. This act of bravery solidifies Dr. Erskine's choice. He explains to Steve that his qualities, his heart, courage, and selflessness, are what make him worthy of becoming a super soldier. Steve undergoes the transformation procedure with the help of Howard Stark. After being injected with the serum, Steve emerges from the chamber as a tall, muscular super soldier. The success of the experiment is quickly overshadowed by tragedy when a Hydra spy kills Dr. Erskine and steals a vial of the serum. Steve chases down the assassin, who reveals that he works for Hydra before taking his own life. Hydra, led by Schmidt, plans to use the Tesseract to create weapons that will change the course of the war. Schmidt, who has used a version of the serum on himself, now possesses superhuman strength but has been disfigured, earning him the nickname Red Skull. Back at the military camp, Steve is disappointed when the army uses him as a propaganda tool, dubbing him Captain America to sell war bonds. Though he becomes a symbol of hope, Steve longs to do more. When he learns that Bucky's unit, the 107th Infantry, has been captured by Hydra, Steve defies orders and sets out to rescue them. With help from Peggy and Stark, Steve infiltrates Hydra's base, frees the prisoners, and rescues Bucky. This mission earns him respect from his fellow soldiers and Colonel Phillips. Steve then forms a team, including Bucky, to take down Hydra's remaining bases. Their next mission involves attacking a Hydra train, where Bucky falls from the train during the battle, seemingly to his death. Though devastated, Steve presses on, capturing Dr. Zola and learning of Red Skull's plan to launch a series of devastating attacks on major cities. In a final showdown, Steve infiltrates Red Skull's base and boards his massive aircraft. The two engage in a fierce battle, and Red Skull attempts to harness the power of the Tesseract. However, the artifact opens a portal, sucking Red Skull into space. With the aircraft still on course to destroy New York, Steve makes the ultimate sacrifice, crashing the plane into the ocean to save millions of lives. Decades later, in 2011, Steve is found frozen in the ice, but miraculously still alive. He wakes up in modern-day New York, disoriented by the time that has passed. Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, informs him that he has been asleep for nearly 70 years. And that's the end of Captain America: The First Avenger. If you enjoyed this recap and want to see more, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a future video. Until next time, take care.